Go.
Manny Navarro, theathletic.com, covers Miami. Cam Ward, after Miami was looking and searching, went to Albany to find someone to be a part of their quarterback room. And then one of the best that was in the portal or open, Cam Ward now is a part of the Hurricanes and Mario Cristobal's program. Manny, thank you very much. Was this like a late Christmas present for them?
It really was. I think when Cam said on January 1st that he was going to turn pro, I think Miami was sort of turned into scramble mode, really, because they hadn't really pushed, I think, for any other elite quarterbacks or felt good about it. And they kind of put all their eggs in the Cam Ward basket. So they knew they had until January 15th. That was the deadline for early enrollees into the draft. And Cam just decided 2 days before to change his mind and come to Miami.
Manny, they're like you said, they put a lot of eggs in that basket. I know that they got Reese Poffenbarger from Albany, and that was the transfer quarterback they had until Cam said this. But this is a pretty seismic turn of events for them, because had they had to go into the spring cycle unsure of what their quarterback situation would be, that would have been really hard to deal with going into the year. And for that to turn out and get their number one choice, that had to be like getting a lottery ticket.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, Cam is a guy that I think everybody in the country who's looking for a quarterback in the transfer portal, they identified him as one of the top guys, right? And if not the top guy, and 44 career starts between his time in Incarnate Word and Washington State, and, a lot of gaudy passing numbers, 13,000 career yards, 119 touchdowns. Just the kind of guy who, you think you can play on Sundays and could really take your program to the next level. They thought they had that in Tyler Van Dyke the last couple seasons. Tyler turned into an interception machine towards the end of his career here at Miami and entered the portal and left for Wisconsin. And they were kind of left, hey, do we really want to count on, a sophomore or a freshman to come in here and lead this thing, or even a transfer from Albany? And Ward obviously was a big upgrade for him.
Manny, what's just kind of the feel around the Miami program following this past season? Obviously, there's excitement today with the Cam Ward news, but just how would you describe sort of the vibes in South Beach right now when it comes to the program?
Well, I think they certainly feel better about it. Mario talked about this. He never came out and said it was going to be a slow build, but he said, look, we're going to do this through recruiting. And that's where Miami put most of their effort, signing a bunch of freshmen, the last two signing classes, having two top 10 recruiting classes in back-to-back years. He could have, Mario could have gone the other way and just said, well, we're going to sign 30 transfers, right? And try to just load up on guys that can help us right away. But that wasn't the plan. He wanted to build a foundation. And, you look at this season, yes, Miami finished 7-6 with a bowl loss to Rutgers, but there were a lot of freshmen who got on the field early for Miami, got a lot of experience. They've got two freshman All-Americans, and Ruben Bain and Francis Mauigo on both sides, offensive and defensive line there. Two anchors here for the next couple of seasons. They've got other young guys that they're developing all over the field. And so Mario took the slow build approach and sprinkling in a couple of transfers. He feels good about it, and they expect a leap forward here in year 3.
What if it doesn't go well early? Anything like the clock is ticking, or is he pretty much set right there?
Yeah, I think he's set. I mean, I've said this repeatedly. He's got a 10-year deal, $80 million, and so he's got 7 years left on that. You don't buy yourself out of something like that. This was a long-term investment for Miami, who doesn't really, up until the last couple of years, didn't really spend money on football. It's been a seismic change from the top of the school on down to say, hey, we're going to invest in football. It's something we're known for. The U is known for football as much as it is its medicine and its academics, and we need to make it great again, right? That was their approach, and so this is an investment in Mario Cristobal. I think we don't start having that discussion with Mario until after year 5, year 6, if he still hasn't gotten things right.
Manny, what else do they need to add to highlight the Cam Ward experience?
Well, look, I like their two receivers. Xavier Restrepo is coming back off a 1,000-yard season. Jacoby George flash. He had a good game against Texas A&M. You go back and watch the tape there. He had some other moments where he was involved in the explosive passing game, had a touchdown against Florida State. So they feel good about, two of the guys that they've got, but they really could use a third weapon, and that's something maybe Cam Ward could help bring in, right, when the spring transfer portal window opens up again in April. Maybe there's a receiver who says, you know what, I could go down and be the number one guy at Miami. I'm going to change addresses. So I think that's one priority. I think the other one is safety. They lost two guys that were really, really good in Cameron Kitchens and James Williams, two guys that are going to get drafted. And I don't know that they really have anybody waiting in the wings to take over. It's sort of a big question mark going into the season. So I think between safety and maybe that true number one receiver, if they can address those two things, they could be a playoff team next year.
Manny, I was just curious. We hear so much out of Tallahassee when it comes to the future of the ACC. How much is that conversation occurring or reverberating around Miami at all?
Well, listen, the ACC was very excited when they got Miami in 2004, right? I mean, they thought, well, we've got Florida State, we've got Miami, we've got Virginia Tech, we've got three of the best teams in the country, right? And at the time, they weren't wrong. What happened was Miami went the wrong direction. Virginia Tech was good for a little while. They fell apart. And then Florida State, after they won their last national championship, went through a really tough period there after Jimbo Fisher left. So Mike Norvell's finally got this thing right. But Miami is, when they're at their best, a lightning rod in college football. And so I think everybody around the ACC is hoping that Mario Cristobal is the guy to get them on the right track, because if the ACC is going to be successful as a football conference, they need one of their flagship programs to carry its weight.
Do you think Miami would follow FSU at it? Like, what is their belief about the future of the ACC and their place in the future of college football?
Well, listen, I think everybody knows that we're gravitating towards the Power 2, right? If we're not already there with the Big Ten and the SEC. Miami is an AAU accredited program. They just got that about a year or two ago. Obviously, the Big Ten loves that. And about Miami, they get a ton of recruits out of the state of Florida. If the Big Ten were to be interested in expanding further south and getting into the state of Florida, I think Miami would raise its hand and say, yes, we're interested. But I think for right now, knowing the TV contract situation that nobody's gotten out of yet, but I know Florida State is dying to, I think for now, Miami sees itself as, potential to be the best program in the ACC and to build off of that in the years to come. And if the Big Ten comes calling in a few years, then to be ready for that move.
Manny, you did a story that is pinned at the top of your timeline on Twitter or X. We talked to future college football stars at the Under Armour All-American game, granted them anonymity, to gather insights on NIL. The coaches they liked and didn't like, and what rules they'd like to see changed. I think I remember reading that when it first came out. What were a couple of the nuggets from the players, the student athletes or the players, football players, on what they would like to see changed?
Well, I think for most of them, the kids nowadays love those big photo shoots that were going on up until the NCAA decided, that's a big waste of money. We don't need to do that for guys that aren't on unofficial trips. So I think a lot of these kids, how they love the Instagram, and they would love to bring that back and make sure them and their buddies can get their photos taken. They're not happy about that. But I think, more important things, I think for some guys, they said less calling. They say coaches call way too much. Other guys want every trip that they go on, whether it's official or unofficial, to be covered by the school, especially if they have to drive far to get there with their parents. Those are some of the key nuggets that I remember them talking about.
Manny, with Cam Ward now their quarterback, what are the expectation levels of what 2024 may be the ceiling and the minimum requirement?
Yeah, I think the minimum requirement is 9 wins for Miami. I think to get anything less than that, getting one of the best quarterbacks in the country to transfer to your program, being in year 3, Miami improved by 2 wins from year 1 to year 2. I think getting from 7 to 9 is probably the minimum. And I would say the ceiling is winning the ACC. I don't think this is a national championship winning program. I don't think this is a team that you'll find in the Final Four as currently constructed. But they win the ACC or they get into the college football playoff, that would probably be the ceiling for this team right now. Mario has this thing headed in the right direction. Certainly think that, that there's been some major improvements, especially on the offensive and defensive line, which is where I think a lot of these championship teams ultimately are formulated. But they're not there yet in terms of depth. They still have a lot of young guys that need to be groomed and brought along. Cam Ward, though, gives you a really special weapon at the quarterback position, and we've seen what that's done for teams like Washington this past season and Tennessee the year before that, right? When you have a special guy at the QB position and a couple playmakers, you can put up a lot of points and have a top 10 caliber type team. So I think that's what Miami is at its ceiling right now.
Manny, I was having this discussion on a podcast earlier about, the 90s and early 2000s, the three teams in Florida, kind of had this like almost treaty of we're going to have the, you're 25, our 25, you're 25. And, whoever gets the players that sway, when somebody gets the Ed Reeds and Sean Taylors of the world, they're going to be the stud team. When somebody gets the Derek Brooks and Andre Wadsworth of the world, they're going to be the stud team and all those things that wins. Nick Saban came along in 2007 and really just started gravitating those players north into Tuscaloosa. What do you think that Nick Saban's retirement, now that it's created this kind of power vacuum and this talent availability, will do for schools in Florida being able to maybe keep some of those guys there because they might have gone to Florida, Florida State, or Miami because they wanted to stay close to home, but Nick Saban, the Pope of college football, summoned them to Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly loosens things up a little bit, but we've got to see what kind of job Kalen DeBoer does. I mean, ultimately, a lot of these elite recruits, I think, want to go play for teams that have a chance to win a championship. And I think until Miami, Florida, and Florida State put themselves back on that level on a consistent basis, I know Florida State probably deserved to get into the playoff this year. And unfortunately for them, went undefeated and got left out. But if they can repeat that, and Miami can start to build some consistency where guys really feel, hey, I can go to Miami and have a chance to win a championship. I think that's what changes it more so than Saban leaving. He's obviously a tremendous magnet, but I would say where he departs, a guy like Kirby Smart only gets stronger, right? He's built a tremendous power there at Georgia, and it's going to be interesting to see what the board does at Alabama. Can he keep it up? Can he continue to recruit at the kind of level that Nick did for so many years? I think Texas is another team to watch with Sarkisian, especially not going to the SEC. They could be the kind of program that steps in and replaces Alabama. So it's going to be interesting to watch, but I think ultimately the success of the in-state, the big three as you called it, it's going to be on them to win and to make themselves relevant.
Manny, what is the way that Miami holds themselves with all this ACC uproar, with Florida State now suing the conference and vice versa? Where do they stand on all that?
Well, I think internally, they kind of wish that maybe Florida State would keep their mouth shut, right, and not create as many waves as they are, because in the end, the ACC, as a unit, they're trying to succeed. They're trying to make as much money as possible and survive and to keep up in the arms race. So I think while they certainly can understand Florida State complaining, they want to make more money and deserve more from the conference. Because they're the more successful program right now. They were all for some of the changes that the CC decided to adopt, including the postseason revenue sharing and how teams that have more success on the field get more back. So they agreed with that part of Florida State's plan and thoughts. But I think in the long run, Miami's just worried about Miami and getting its football program back to where it wants to be instead of being an afterthought in college football.
Thank you, Manny. Appreciate you as always. Appreciate your time. Manny Navarro, theathletic.com, on the Miami Hurricanes, who need to get a little jolt.